The student council vice president submitted her resignation today. The reason line held only a name.
Daiki Sato. Come with me. Now.
What does the student council president want with me?
He followed the tall figure down the silent hallway, every footstep echoing his dread. The student council room was drenched in afternoon light. The vice president stood at the window, her back to the door. The president set a single folded paper on the polished table and pushed it toward Daiki. On the paper, handwritten with exacting strokes, reason for resignation, Daiki Sato.
What? I don't understand. Why would she write my name? I've barely spoken 3 words to her since first year. This makes no sense.
Then she turned. Her lips quivered. A tear fell. Without a word, she walked out. The president's voice cut through. It's because of you. Fix it.
Wait. What does that mean? I have barely ever spoken to her.
Your ignorance won't protect you. Her resignation is on your head now.
On my head? She wrote my name as the reason without ever telling me anything.
Daiki stumbled into the hallway, the president's cold stare still pressing against his back.
I have to find out why she did this. There has to be a reason. Yui, you know Misaki Kojima, right? What is her deal?
The vice president? She is strict and obsessed with rules. Never heard her mention you at all.
So even our classmates cannot connect us. This is insane. I'm going to figure this out, even if I have to dig through old records.
And so Daiki began his search, with nothing but a name and a question mark.
Excuse me, does anyone know if Vice President Kojima handles things like class assignments?
Oh, definitely. Some say she reviews every class roster personally. Even club placements go through her.
She handles rosters? Could she have changed mine then? Has she ever helped anyone? Like, secretly?
There is an old rumor. Someone got moved to a quieter study spot anonymously. No one proved it was her, though.
A quieter study spot. That sounds too familiar. So she had access, and she used it. I need to check the old class rosters.
But Daiki, the archive room is locked after hours. You'd need permission.
I don't have time for permission. The president's ultimatum is ticking.
That night, Daiki crept into the archive wing, the stale air thick with the scent of aging paper. Daiki's flashlight swept across the shelf labels until it landed on a binder marked Class Rosters, second year.
Second year. When I was suddenly moved away from Kato's group. This has to be the key.
He cracked the binder open. The pages were crisp and official, but riddled with handwritten corrections. Next to his name, a small notation in blue ink read, Class 3B, away from Takahashi and Maeda.
Those two made my first year a nightmare. I never questioned why they vanished second year. I just felt lucky. He flipped back to first year. A typed line had been whited out and rewritten, Class 1C, updated.
Every alteration bore the same initials in the margin. MK, Misaki Kojima.
She didn't just observe. She actively pulled me out of harm's way. 3 years of this, without a single word. But why? What could I possibly have done to make a girl who's never spoken to me rearrange her entire council work for my sake?
The question burned deeper as he locked the archive door behind him. He had to uncover the spark that ignited such a secret 3-year debt. The next morning, Daiki tracked down the one person from his past who might have answers. Akio Suzuki, his former tormentor.
Akio, we need to talk.
What do you want, Sato? I've kept my distance like she told me.
She? You mean Vice President Kojima?
Yeah. She cornered us second year. Said if we ever looked at you again, she'd have us expelled. She had the student council files. Knew every detention we'd ever had. It wasn't a bluff. Honestly, it was over the top. You were nobody special. I never got why she'd go that far.
She didn't just move names on paper. She threatened bullies directly. That could have ended her council career. Did she ever mention why? Anything she said that could explain it?
No. Just told us to stay away. She looked desperate, man. Like if you got hurt, She'd lose something.
Desperate. As if she would lose something. What could I possibly be to her?
Then a memory surfaced, faint and long buried under years of ordinary school days.
First year, behind the gym, there was a girl crying. I had almost forgotten.
He remembered his hand holding out a simple white tissue, the only thing he had to offer.
That girl? The tear-streaked face behind those glasses. It was Misaki, the whole time. I gave her a tissue once and then walked away. That was the entire interaction between us.
A gesture so trivial that Daiki had erased it from his conscious memory. To Misaki, it had been an anchor.
She rearranged her entire student council work to protect me, because of a tissue. But why? What was she crying about that day? That's the missing piece.
The spark was found. Now Daiki had to trace it back to the fire that forged her 3-year vow. The school bulletin pinned beside the classroom door carried a headline he couldn't ignore.
They're going to audit every class roster change from the last 3 years?
The document read, "Students whose placements were altered without formal request will be named in the report."
Every time Misaki moved me, every time she kept me away from bullies, all of it would be exposed, and my name will be right there, publicly linked to her unauthorized interventions. That's why she resigned, not because she wanted to leave, but to preempt the audit.
The realization hit him like a physical blow. She was sacrificing herself to keep his name clean.
I won't let this happen. I have to find her and make her withdraw it.
He rushed through the corridors heading straight for the empty student council room. But Misaki was gone, and the only trace of her was a cold, unanswered question. Inside the empty council room, the full policy reform document lay open on the table, its pages stamped with official red ink. The document read, "Any roster change not formally requested by the student shall be classified as unauthorized. Both the council member and the affected student will be named."
My name will appear right next to hers. There's no way to dodge it now.
This was beyond a scandal. The school could suspend her, or worse. Yet Misaki had simply walked away.
She knew this day was coming. She chose to sacrifice herself without a single protest.
He stormed out of the council room, searching for the one man who could stop the audit, President Hayato.
President, you need to withdraw the audit clause. Misaki's interventions were all for me.
The policy is council approved. Whatever Kojima did, she did alone. I cannot shield either of you.
Then I'll find her myself, before that report goes public.
And so, with no ally but his own resolve, Daiki began a search that would lead him to the rooftop, and the truth. By the next afternoon, Daiki had checked every corner of the school except the one place Misaki had made her own.
She's avoiding me. Every time I catch a glimpse, she disappears before I can take 3 steps.
Then he saw her, a flash of dark blue hair and the glint of silver-rimmed glasses near the lockers.
Misaki, wait, please.
Her spine stiffened. She didn't turn. Her footsteps quickened, a sharp click echoing off the lockers. He broke into a run, but she had already vanished around the corner, as if she had rehearsed the escape.
She's running from me. She won't even let me thank her, let alone help. If she won't face me, I'll dig through her council notes. There has to be a reason she's so determined to cut ties.
He turned and headed for the student council room, where Misaki's meticulous records waited like a silent confession. Her binder was the last chance to understand the girl who had silently carried him for 3 years. The council room was still, the air heavy with the scent of old paper. Daiki stepped inside and closed the door behind him. His gaze swept the shelf labeled class assignments until it landed on a thick leather binder, its spine worn from use. He pulled it onto the table and opened the cover. Page after page was filled with Misaki's small, precise handwriting. One note read, "Avoid placing Daiki with Kato Group. Kato targets quiet students."
She mapped out every threat, knew my bullies better than I did.
Another page, "Switch Daiki to study hall B, quieter, better lighting."
Lighting? She even cared about where I studied. This wasn't just protection, it was devotion.
The binder contained 3 years of silent intervention. Every club, every seat, every possible conflict meticulously diffused.
She gave me 3 years of ordinary school life, and now she's throwing away her own.
The weight of her sacrifice pressed on his chest. He closed the binder, jaw set, and stood ready to confront the only one who could explain. He found her at the lockers, her back straight, fingers resting on the metal door as if bracing for a blow.
I found your binder, Misaki. 3 years of class placements, all adjusted just for me.
You're mistaken. The council handles hundreds of adjustments. Nothing was personal.
Then why resign? The audit would expose your interventions. And my name. You're trying to shield me.
My resignation is my own business. Stay out of it.
You protected me for 3 years. You can't just walk away like it meant nothing.
It meant nothing. Forget you saw any of it.
That's a lie. She's trembling. But why won't she let me in?
She vanished down the corridor, her silence louder than any confession. Daiki stood rooted, the binder heavy in his hands. The wall she had built was too thick for gratitude alone. He needed to find the reason she had started protecting him in the first place. That night, Daiki sat at his desk, a blank sheet of paper under the lamplight. The pen in his hand refused to move.
I need to thank her. But every sentence I try reads like a hollow excuse.
He wrote a line, crossed it out, wrote another, crumpled the page. The floor was already littered with failed attempts.
She spent 3 years quietly shielding me. Words on paper can't carry that weight.
His gaze drifted to the tissue box at the edge of the desk. The same brand, soft and white, he'd offered behind the gym years ago.
That tissue was the only proof I saw her pain that day. It meant more than any speech.
He tore the half-written letter clean in two, then pulled a single tissue free, holding it like a promise.
I'll find her. I'll give her this tissue, and I'll say I remember. That has to be enough.
He didn't know where she vanished to after school, but he knew someone who might. Tomorrow he would begin the real search, not for answers but for her. The next afternoon, Daiki caught Yui by the school gate, his breath uneven from running.
Yui, do you know where Misaki goes after school? I need to find her.
I've seen her heading up to the rooftop a few times. She stays there until sunset.
Thank you, Yui. I owe you.
He sprinted through the empty halls, his footsteps echoing as he bounded up the stairs. At the top, the rooftop door loomed. He pressed his hand against it, breathing hard. Through the small window he saw her. Misaki stood at the railing, her silhouette bathed in gold.
She's right there. But what do I say? I have the tissue, but the words, they're stuck. If I mess this up, she'll never stop running. I can't afford to be clumsy.
His hand trembled on the handle. The door creaked open a sliver, but he didn't step through, not yet. He stepped back from the door, the weight of uncertainty too heavy. He needed to know why she had been crying that day. Daiki hurried to the faculty office, where he found President Hayato speaking with a teacher.
President, you've known Misaki since first year. Why was she crying behind the gym that day?
Her mother died that morning. She attended school anyway. You were the only one who noticed.
The words hit Daiki like a physical strike. The tissue hadn't been a small gesture, it had been a lifeline.
That's why she protected me. I was the only proof someone saw her pain.
The president's voice stayed cold, but his eyes held a rare flicker of regret.
She's been carrying that alone. She won't accept help easily.
Daiki turned and ran, his footsteps echoing the same drumbeat. The rooftop now, before she vanished again. He burst through the rooftop door, the sunset blinding him, but his voice was ready. The rooftop wind struck him hard, but he stood frozen just past the threshold, catching his breath. His hand slipped into his pocket and found a worn, folded paper he had almost forgotten. Earlier, he had rushed through the library and pulled an old novel from the shelf Misaki had once borrowed. Inside the pages, he found a small slip of paper, its edges frayed, her handwriting still sharp. The note read in neat ink, "Thank you for the tissue. I won't forget."
She carried this promise for 3 years. Every intervention, every risk. It all started here.
He tucked the note back into his pocket, its weight heavier than any proof he had gathered before.
This isn't just evidence. It's her heart, and I'm going to return it.
He started walking toward her, his footsteps steady on the wind-scoured concrete. Misaki didn't turn, but her shoulders stiffened. She knew he was there. Before he had climbed to the rooftop, Daiki had pressed his ear to the council room door. frozen by a familiar voice. Through the crack, the vice president's usually icy tone was raw and frayed.
I won't let that audit name him. I'd rather resign and disappear.
Your methods were reckless, but I understand why you did it.
He was the only one who saw me when I was invisible. I won't let him be dragged into my mistakes.
Outside, Daiki's breath caught. The reason line on her letter had never been an accusation. She wrote his name to protect him, even if it meant destroying her own reputation.
She wasn't blaming me. She was shielding me. Everything she did was to keep my name clean.
The conversation replayed in his mind, reshaping every cold look and every sharp word she had ever given him. He took a deep breath, the note in his pocket and the tissue in his hand suddenly heavier than stone.
3 years. Every quiet study hall, every class without bullies, she gave me those. And I never noticed. I just lived my life, oblivious, while she carried all the weight. Even when her mother died, I walked away without a word. She gave me everything anyway. I will not be the reason she vanishes. Not today. Not ever.
He walked forward, each step a small rebellion against the silence that had kept them apart. The rooftop door clicked shut behind him, sealing away any retreat. Misaki's back was still to him, but the tremor in her shoulders was unmistakable.
She's terrified. Not of the audit, but of me, of what I might say. But I won't run. Not when she's been standing here alone for 3 years.
He stopped just behind her shoulder, close enough to hear her unsteady breath, and spoke.
Misaki, I know everything. The roster changes, the bullies, why you resigned.
Go away, Daiki.
I'm not leaving. Not this time.
He stepped closer, the wind whipping his blazer, until he stood just a breath away. Misaki finally turned, and the cold mask she wore shattered. Her eyes were red, brimming with tears she couldn't hide.
Why can't you just let me disappear? It would be easier for everyone.
Easier? You've been carrying me for 3 years. I'm not letting you vanish under that weight.
She looked worn, the sharp edges of her composure crumbling into something fragile.
I found your note. The one you wrote after that day behind the gym.
Misaki's breath hitched. The sky burned orange behind them, waiting for the next words neither had ever said. Daiki reached into his blazer and pulled out the resignation letter, its halves hanging limp in the wind.
I tore it, Misaki. This letter that was supposed to end everything.
That changes nothing. The audit will still come. My name will be in the report.
Then we'll face it together. I'm not letting you take the fall alone.
You don't understand. I broke the rules. It's my fault alone.
I've lived in the quiet life you built for 3 years. If it was built on your defiance, then it's half my defiance too.
Misaki's lips parted, but no sound came. She turned her face away, as if the horizon could swallow her.
It's too late. I've already submitted the resignation. The process has started.
Daiki's hand, still gripping the torn letter, didn't waver. The tissue in his other hand was his next move.
Do you remember this? A tissue. Just a tissue.
Stop.
He stepped closer, the white tissue now between them like a fragile bridge.
I remember. Behind the gym. You were crying, and I gave you this.
Why? Why would you remember that? It was nothing.
It wasn't nothing. It was everything to you. And now I know why.
Because you were the only one who saw me. The only one who noticed I was human that day.
Her knees trembled, the iron control she had wielded for years buckling under the weight of a single memory.
You don't have to carry it alone anymore. I see you now, Misaki. All of it.
Her fingers, so precise on council documents, now shook as they reached for the small white square.
Your protection was a gift, Misaki. But I need to be allowed to stand on my own feet now.
If we face it, I'll be expelled. And you'll be dragged down with me.
Then let them drag us both. I'll be standing right there beside you, no matter what.
Her resolve wavered. The wall she had built for 3 years cracked under his steady gaze.
But why would you risk everything for someone you barely know?
Because you've been risking everything for me every single day. It's my turn.
She looked at the torn letter, then at the tissue, her breath shallow and uneven.
Stay, Misaki. Withdraw the resignation. Let's rewrite the rules together.
For a long moment, the only sound was the wind. Then her voice, barely a whisper, broke the silence.
I never wanted to be a burden. If you knew, I was so afraid you'd feel indebted.
I'm not indebted. I'm grateful. And I want to be your friend. Just that.
He took her hand, pressing the tissue into her palm, his fingers warm against her cold skin.
No more secrets. No more silent protection. Just us, figuring it out together.
She looked down at their joined hands, a tear spilling over the edge of her cheek. Her shoulders shook with quiet sobs, the rigid control finally giving way.
It's okay. Let it out. I'm not going anywhere.
The tissue, now damp, remained clasped between their fingers, a fragile anchor.
I don't know how to stop. Protecting you was the only way I knew to say thank you.
But she didn't pull away. In the fading golden light, she just held on.
You've been alone too long. If we withdraw the resignation now, we can rewrite the policy together. Transparent, fair, so no one ever has to suffer in silence again.
Her sobs grew louder, a dam breaking after 3 years of silence. A single nod, so small it could have been the wind, but it held the weight of 3 years. Daiki helped her to her feet, his arms steady around her trembling shoulders.
Tomorrow morning, we'll go to the council together.
She didn't argue. She just let him guide her away from the railing. The rooftop door stood open, the dark stairwell waiting to pull them back to the world below. And with the first step away from the edge, Misaki Kojima began the walk back from her own resignation. The torn halves of the letter fluttered once on the concrete, then lay still. They descended the stairwell, Misaki's hand still trembling around the tissue, Daiki's arms steady at her back. A figure blocked the way ahead. President Hayato, arms folded, his narrow glasses glinting under the fluorescent lights.
President, we need to talk.
It's late. What could possibly warrant this?
She's withdrawing her resignation. We'll present the revised policy together.
Hayato's gaze shifted to Misaki, who didn't flinch. Her red-rimmed eyes held his, the tissue still clenched in her fingers. For a long moment, the stern president said nothing. Then, without a word, he stepped aside.
I expect the proposal by noon tomorrow.
His footsteps faded. Misaki exhaled, and the tissue in her hand finally stopped shaking. Together, they turned toward the council room door. The real work was about to begin. The next morning, the student council room felt charged as Daiki and Misaki stepped inside side by side. Regular members exchanged bewildered glances. The vice president, who had stormed out now, stood poised, though her knuckles were white.
I am withdrawing my resignation, effective immediately.
A murmur ran through the room. Then President Hayato raised a hand, silencing them.
Kojima, do you understand the consequences? The audit will still proceed.
I understand. I'll take full responsibility, but I won't do it alone. Daiki Sato will co-propose the revised policy.
The president's gaze flickered to Daiki, then back to Misaki. A long silence stretched.
Very well. The withdrawal is accepted. You'll present the revised reform to the principal together by end of week.
A collective exhale. The first step back from the edge had been taken by 2 instead of 1. That night, the library's silence wrapped around them as they spread the draft reform across a long table.
If we write students may request adjustments, that still gives the council too much power to refuse.
Then we use shall be granted and define objective criteria. No loopholes.
She's so sharp when she's not building walls. Every counter is exactly what we need. That's perfect. Add that, and no one can ever be quietly shuffled around again.
For the first time since he had known her, Misaki's lips curved into a genuine, unguarded smile.
She's beautiful when she forgets to be the vice president. Why did I never see that?
They fell back into drafting, but the silence had changed, no longer heavy. Just 2 minds finally on the same page. By midnight, the final clause was inked clean. The policy was ready, transparent, fair, and irrevocably theirs. But outside the library window, the school's dark silhouette reminded them. The real test would come with the morning bell. Backstage, the auditorium's murmur seeped through the curtain. Misaki's hands trembled as she clutched the reform draft.
My voice is going to crack. I should have let you present alone.
We practiced this. You're not alone anymore, remember?
He pulled out a small white tissue and held it out. The same gesture from years ago, now a pact.
You're impossible.
Impossible enough to rewrite the rules. Now let's go show them.
The stage lights snapped on overhead, harsh and brilliant. Misaki slipped the tissue into her sleeve and took a breath. Side by side, Daiki and Misaki stepped into the light, the murmur of the student body falling to an expectant hush. The presentation was about to begin, and with it, the final test of what they had built.
Last year, I altered class rosters without permission. I broke the rules.
And every student who was quietly moved away from a bully, I was one of them, owes her a safer school day.
Misaki's eyes stayed on the crowd, her voice trembling but clear.
Under the old policy, I was forced to act in secret. The new reform makes intervention transparent. No student should have to beg for safety.
They outlined the audit-proof system, every clause built to catch what the old rules had hidden.
Her resignation letter had my name on the reason line, but it was never an accusation. It was a warning. A warning that our system was failing.
A thick silence filled the auditorium, heavy as held breath. Then from the third row, a single pair of hands came together.
That's my friends! They did it!
Another student joined, then a row, until the auditorium erupted in genuine relieved applause. On stage, Misaki's shoulders dropped. Daiki exhaled. The weight of 3 years of silence finally lifted under the roar. Off stage, the principal's verdict was swift. The policy would be implemented, and Misaki's past actions, though unauthorized, had filled a gap the old system ignored. Daiki Sato's name was officially added to the reform as co-author, a first for a non-council student. When they finally stepped into the empty hallway, the roar of the auditorium was still ringing in their ears.
Daiki, thank you for not letting me vanish.
I should be the one saying that. You carried me for 3 years without a single word.
You saw me when I was invisible. That kind of kindness doesn't ask for repayment.
Then let's not keep score. Let's just keep walking forward, together.
She looked at his hand, then at him, and for the first time her smile didn't flicker away after a single breath. The bell rang, but neither moved. A quiet understanding had settled between them, unspoken but solid. In the weeks that followed, the new policy took root. Daiki and Misaki became a fixture in the council room, working late into the evenings.
15 requests processed this week. No bullying reports linked to any of them.
The students finally trust the system. No one has to suffer in silence or rely on hidden interventions.
Daiki's reputation had shifted. Classmates who once barely noticed him now greeted him with respect, the co-author of the school's reform. One afternoon, walking home together, Misaki pulled a worn notebook from her bag, her old assignment binder.
Look at this. Thank you for the tissue. I won't forget. I wrote that in a library book. So dramatic.
Dramatic? That note became the foundation of a new policy. I'd say it was a prophecy.
Misaki laughed, a full sound that no longer carried the weight of secrets. They continued down the path, two silhouettes sharing a quiet, ordinary evening. No longer protector and protected, just equals. The school year settled into a new rhythm, and so did they. One evening, as the setting sun turned the sky gold, Daiki and Misaki walked home in a comfortable silence.
I always used to watch you from the back of the classroom. I was too scared to even say hello.
You? Scared? The strict vice president?
Strictness was my shield. You were the only one who ever saw past it.
Then I'm glad you wrote my name on that letter. It forced me to look.
They stopped at a crosswalk, the red light blinking, the world pausing just for them.
Daiki, would you like to walk home together more often? Not just for council business.
I'd like that. Every day if you want.
The crosswalk light turned green, and they stepped forward together, the path home a little longer than before. At the year-end council meeting, Daiki and Misaki sat side by side at the head table, the same room that had once held her resignation. On the wall behind them, the original resignation letter hung in a simple frame, the word withdrawn stamped across it in red.
Hard to believe that piece of paper almost ended everything.
Misaki's eyes followed his gaze, Her expression carried no regret, only a quiet, settled peace.
It was never an end, just a wrong turn.
The council members around them flipped through reports, but for a moment, the two co-authors shared a look that needed no words. Beside the framed letter, a small shelf held the old library book and the tissue box, a quiet museum of how far they had come. The meeting adjourned with the routine matters of a school that had learned to listen. Outside the window, cherry blossoms drifted, as if the school itself had exhaled. And for the first time in 3 years, Vice President Misaki Kojima looked at her own reflection without a single sharp edge. After the meeting, Daiki and Misaki climbed the familiar stairs to the rooftop, the door now open and waiting. They stood at the railing, the same spot where she had almost vanished, the sunset painting the sky in soft orange and pink. Daiki reached into his bag and pulled out a fresh pack of tissues, the plastic crinkling in the quiet. Without a word, he placed it on the railing beside them, a tribute to where everything began. Misaki glanced at the tissue box, then back at him. A soft smile, so different from the cold mask she once wore, curved her lips. She didn't need to say thank you anymore. The silence between them had become its own language. They watched the sun dip below the horizon, the school quieting beneath them. And there, on the rooftop that had once held her tears, a small white box promised that no one would ever have to cry alone again. The tissue box stood as the first stars appeared. Two silhouettes no longer apart, watched the sky darken. The school was safe now for everyone. The next morning, in the student council room, the framed resignation letter caught the early light. Beside the glass, a small dried cherry blossom had been tucked, a quiet gesture no one claimed. The flower's pale pink edges softened the stark red stamp, a symbol of what had bloomed from destruction. In Daiki's room, a new photograph leaned against his schoolbooks on the cluttered desk. The picture captured a moment from the school festival. Misaki, glasses askew, laughing at Daiki's failed ring toss. Her smile was wide and unguarded, the smile of a girl who no longer needed to hide. Beside the photo, the old library book lay open to the page where her note had once been hidden. The room was quiet, the afternoon sun warming the wooden surface, as if time itself had paused. Some reasons aren't reasons at all, they're beginnings. And in that small photograph, a new beginning had already started. The sun began its slow descent over the school, painting the rooftop in hues of orange and violet. The box of tissues remained on the railing, untouched since they had left it. A soft breeze lifted a single white tissue from the box, pulling it free into the golden air. It floated over the railing, catching the dying light as it drifted across the empty rooftop, higher and higher, past the silent stairwell, until it was just a pale speck against the evening sky. Below, the school was quiet, its windows reflecting the last glow of sunset. And that was how a single tissue changed the course of 2 lives. Not because it was grand, but because it was given when nothing else would do. The tissue vanished into the blue, and the screen slowly faded to black.